Welcome to Scorched Earth and a general reading for the sign of Gemini, Sun, Moon or Ascendant for the month of October 2024. I hope you are well. I'm using the Night Sun Tarot. I couldn't remember what it was called for a second there. I'm using the Night Sun Tarot for you today, and as such, because it's got some nudity in it, if any cards come out that have said nudity on it, I'm going to be covering them up. So just so you know, that's what I'm doing. I can't bring myself to deface the cards. So other things to note are, if the reading resonates with you and you'd like to go a little bit deeper, there will be an extended that you can access at the end. That is via the first link that is in the description box underneath this video. Second link in that same description box is to my private community, which is the Order of the Phoenix over on the Circle platform. You can get access to all of the extended content for no extra cost beyond the membership fee. Hang out with an extraordinary group of people, and maybe learn something along the way, because there's a lot going on over there. So let's have a look and see what's going on with you, Gemini. I'm going to move my cup of coffee out of the way first, though, so you don't have to look at that. Right, can I have 3 cards for Gemini, please? There's the first one. We have the 7 of Wands in your recent past. What about current energy, please, for Gemini? Come on, there we go. 7 of Swords, interesting. And what's coming towards Gemini for October, please? 3 of Wands, with an additional card of the 4 of Pentacles. Now, you will note that there is no major arcana in there. I don't think that's an issue at all. We do have the Queen of Cups at the bottom of the deck, who is about the more emotional side of life, right? She represents all that is taking into ourselves. She's extremely receptive, because queens are receptive and water itself is receptive, so we've got like receptivity squared there. I feel like this is very much around the idea of what is important to you. Now, the fact that we have no major arcana on the table doesn't mean that it's a month where nothing happens. More, it's a month where universal forces are not pushing on you in the same way that they might be other signs or on you, as it has been a few months ago, right? It's more about, what are you going to do with what it is that you've taken into yourself, what you understand to be important, and how are you going to shift and change plans that you've had in order to make that happen. It's really interesting, because this is a message that I got during the meditation before I started your reading, was that there was a sense of Gemini really beginning to align themselves with something that really meant something to them, right? It was really important, it was kind of purposeful. And I've seen that same message, to be fair, ripple across all of the signs this month. But a lot of the other signs have had a lot of major arcana energy on it, right? So there's new information, there's new new experiences to be had that shape and change them. This is saying you actually have everything that you need. Now it's time to make a decision about where you're going to align yourself. And it's not a case of picking sides. Please don't think that there's a particular angle, a particular political angle or anything like that to this reading. It's not a dimension that I'm picking up. It feels like it's something purposeful that aligns with who you are and how you feel, coming from a place of great compassion and great empathy. So let's pull some clarifiers out. Tell me about the 7 of Wands, please. That's so interesting. We've got the Justice card and the 7 of Cups and the Moon there. Ooh, also with the Knight of Swords, which is you, Gemini, right? We've got you in a state of some confusion about the right move forwards, right? That's how I'm reading that, but we're going to put those back into the deck. And we've got this 8 of Swords in reverse, which I very much like. Tell me what else we've got. 2 of Swords in reverse, great. And the Strength card reversed, which is very, very interesting indeed. Tell me about this. I'll explain why when we start going through the cards, but it's pointing at something. This is really strong. We get the 7 of Wands in the upright, and we've got the Hanged Man. Tell me about the 3 of Wands. Right. Do you know what? We're going to leave those as they are. because although on the face of it they would make more sense, at least these two would make more sense if they were in the upright, I actually feel like this is kind of what this whole reading is about right here, right? The changing, the ebbing, flowing, the realigning with, all part of the process this month. And then we have the King of Wands. Like there is a strong sense of refining one's plan, refining one's goal, refining the way that you actually do what it is that, whatever it is that you're aligning to this month. But there's a strongly tactile energy that's playing out here. I kind of want to do this with my hand. It's very hands-on, Gemini. And this is really, really interesting. So, it started raining. That's bad news. My partner's actually on the roof trying to repoint shit up there at the moment. So I guess that's the end of play for today. The unfortunate thing is that there are no ridge. There's 3 ridge tiles missing from the roof at the moment as of 10 minutes ago. So leaks abound. Okay. So we start with the 7 of Wands, and I really like this, and I kind of doubly like it because it's appearing over here too. Now you'll notice that the quality of these 2 cards is ever so slightly different, right? The depiction is different. There's a different kind of energy that is held by these. Sometimes we talk about the 7 of Wands in terms of a defensive or guarded energy, right? It can be almost an aggressive energy of fighting for something, right? And in its worst presentation, this is those moments where we get defensive and we jump down people's throats because we feel attacked, where we may not necessarily be so. Notice here on this card, for example, that we have invisible assailants. Like, we actually don't really know what's going on in this card because we don't have enough information. Is he coming from a place of righteousness and standing up for what he believes in, or is he imagining that he is under attack in some sort of way? And so we've got invisible assailants kind of poking him around here. There's a very different kind of feel to this 7 of Wands over here. It feels aligned, it feels balanced, and there's a great deal of looking at oneself kind of incorporated into the imagery of this card, I think. Now, when you tie it together with both the 8 of Swords and the 2 of Swords in reverse, what we've got is a situation whereby you are not restricted by the quality of your own mind, right? And this is a Gemini card here, Jupiter in Gemini actually. But it speaks about a liberation of mind that is here, that is coming. And there's also nothing hidden from you. Now, I can't remember if it was last month, Gemini, or the month before. I do remember saying to you, like, you had all the information that you needed. You didn't actually need to go out and find any more. It was all about the internal synthesis of what you have already been exposed to and what information you have. And I find that this tallies really nicely with the energy of the Queen of Cups, which is saying, like, well, how do I make sense of how I feel now I've got all of this information? If I sit down with only this information and say, what does this show me about everything? There's a sense that what it's doing is tweaking something that's been a little bit out of alignment, where you've been thinking too big where maybe you need to think small, or thinking too small where maybe you need to think big. Like, this question of what something means to you is better answered now that you're coming at it from a place of self-reflection than it was before. And now that you're in a state of accepting that you have all of the information that you need, right? There's no need to keep looking outside of self and kind of back to here. What does it all mean? And how do I feel about what it all means? Now, the Strength card in reverse is very interesting because these are both Leo cards here, right? So wherever Leo shows up, we've got things, we've got fire energy, but we've got that fixed nature of fire. So it's about consistency, consistent effort, and consistent drive, possibly, a consistent level of bravery, perhaps. These things all coming up to the surface. There's also playfulness, there's childlike behaviours, you know, a certain sense of innocence, actually. And we see this in the Maiden. Now, I thought it was really interesting that the Justice card came, like peeked its face up in the deck rather than coming straight out, because I do feel like you have a really well-attuned sense of justice right now. And what all this is saying here to me is that you're becoming very attuned to what is unjust. Is this the way to put how I'm feeling? I think it is. Because you could interpret the Strength card reversed as a lack of power or a lack of growth or a lack of courage, any of these things. But it feels much more circumspect. It feels much more observed than felt. So now you've got all of your shit in a line. It's like you're looking around at everything else and everyone else and seeing where it's a little tiny beetle thing. It's really cute. Beautiful colours. Like a bottle green, metallic bottle green. You're starting to make sense of where power imbalances lie. And they're not where you thought they were. This is what I'm feeling from this, right? So perhaps you may have felt internally some sense of a power imbalance, and that might have been by way of experiences that you've had recently, interactions with certain people. It feels like this reflective kind of looking at self way that you've approached things means that you understand that you are balanced. Right? And this has come from not needing any more information actually than you already have, and making sense of it, synthesizing it, all that sort of thing. But now you're looking around, because Gemini can't help but look around, right? It's very curious energy, and starting to see where these power imbalances lie in other people. I think one of the things that's really driving you, and I'm sort of giggling because I had a personal reading with a Gemini last night, and there were themes of this that were coming through really strong there for her too. There is a sense here that what you want to do, what you are feeling driven to do, and this may be newly emerging in you, is help people find the strength to balance themselves in the way that you have. Right, to be autonomous and sovereign in their own existences. Because the Strength card reversed does not feel like it applies to you at all. But what is changing, and I have felt that change right from the outset here with you, what is changing, what is crystallizing as you are aligning with this understanding of what you have synthesized and what you feel very strongly about, is how this factors into the life that you thought you were going to live versus the life that you feel now intuitively you will be living instead. What does that mean in practical terms? Because in your current energy, you've got the Seven of Swords here. Now, this is both a card of tactics, it's a card of strategy, it's a card of risk-taking, and I do feel like there's an element of risk in something that you're contemplating here, but I feel like the risk is more, I am moving outside of my comfort zone here. I'm away from what I know, I'm away from what I understand, but I am driven to do this because there are there are wrongs that need to be righted, there are people that need to be taught to how to bring this kind of energy in for themselves. Now, this would explain why we have, this Leo energy on the table here, because we're always talking about bravery and courage and all these sorts of things when Leo shows up, in amongst other things. But what's really important about this particular depiction of the Seven of Swords is not the seven swords that lie on the floor in front of him. It is not that. It is more the potential that can be accessed by agreeing to take this kind of risk. He has an egg in his hand and he looks really, really shocked. And this is, eggs are representative of or symbolic of, rather, potential and new ways of thinking, new ways of doing, new ways of showing up in the world that we did not realise were for us. They simply hadn't factored into the plan somewhere. But because you've been looking for answers for quite a long time, and there's no way you haven't, Gemini, not with all these sevens on the table, even the Chariot actually. You're coming to a series of conclusions that aren't taking you where you thought you were going. They aren't taking you where you thought you wanted to go. But nevertheless, they are solid. And this sense of acceptance about why you're here and what you're here to do. There's a strong, really, really strong energy of teacher, of leader, of guide, of interpreter. Educator is the word actually that I want to use. Educator of people. Now, how this will be manifesting for each of you, I'm not sure. But I know that there are a lot of Geminis who are in spiritual practice. I know because you all came in, when was it? Fuck. Was it 2020? Beginning of 2022 or the beginning of 2021? I can't remember. I think it was beginning of 2022, possibly. All turned up at the same time, all with the same idea moving forwards, which is that they wanted to work in, in spiritual modalities. And they weren't sure how to go about it or whether it was the right idea for them or, any one of these things. So I know there's a lot of Geminis out there who are doing that, working with energies and whatnot. But I wonder if your role is going to shift into something else, because this role of the educator, and this would make perfect sense because you are ruled by Mercury, and Mercury is, if you didn't know, is also Thoth. And Thoth is apparently he who gave us the gift of writing, which changed the way that our mind worked, for sure. Now, let me just pull this card for this. We have the Six of Cups, and we have the Five of Wands in reverse down there on the floor. Shall I go get it? Because you need to see it, right? Five of Wands in reverse. So we have a lack of conflict now. And the Six of Cups is something that is past related, right? So this can be past lives, but it's more likely than not your childhood, right? So some sort of aversion to risk, possibly, that occurred in childhood, or an aversion to putting yourself out there as fully as you are. Whatever it is for you, whatever the aversion has been that you've recognised, and maybe it's even the aversion to considering yourself an expert or someone who is capable of educating others, that's a childhood thing. And that's why what's happening now feels like it could be a risk, and yet it's so close to touching this egg of potential. I don't think that you're interested in fighting it anymore. One more card, please. Ten of Cups and Ace of Swords, because the collective needs it. Now, there are many ways to be an educator, and not all of them are, obvious, like putting yourself on YouTube and giving classes and in all sorts of esoteric modalities and whatnot. But I really am getting a sense that there is a message now that you are kind of crafting within you that comes from a place of a deep understanding and a deep truth that is ready to start being shared because the collective needs it. And it's almost like it doesn't really matter how you feel about it. All of the energy is lining up here, asking for you to share what it is that you've known. And as I point out sometimes, that wisdom isn't really worth anything if it's not passed on. And you're being asked to pass this on, but in a very hands-on way, like this tactile energy that I keep feeling is so strong. There is something that you are moulding and shaping here, and even if at this point it is only an idea, it's taking you somewhere. So we have the Three of Wands and the Four of Pentacles in October, and this is where it all starts to crystallize. Four of Swords, very deeply related to this, But the Page of Wands and the Chariot reversed, both of them reversed, are a slightly different direction. This is what this is talking about. It's not where you thought you were going. It's not what you thought you were going to be doing, but it is taking you in a different direction. What do I mean? Well, let me say here. 3 of Wands, 4 of Pentacles. This 4 of Pentacles, not this exact one, right, but the 4 of Pentacles, is often known as the miser card, right? It represents somebody who is clamping down on something that they consider to have value because they don't want to share it, they don't want to lose it, right? Ultimately, it's that feeling that if they let go of it, it's not going to come back to them in any kind of meaningful way. There's a sense of an underpinning of fear around the energy of this card, because it's like, no. But the flip side of this card, and there are always flip sides of all the cards across the tarot, is that this sometimes can represent the crystallization of your core values. And there's something that's being reflected back to you from the world. Whether this is on a very small scale, just amongst your friends and your family, or whether this is something, you know, bigger than that, you occupy a much bigger public position than that, for example, that is saying that your core values are understood by you to be this. You feel so strongly about this that you're willing to quite literally engage with it on that tactile level, like live it, breathe it, do all of these sorts of things. Because the time for sitting back and cogitating and ruminating and taking a sort of detached role in what's playing out is gone. Now it's about getting in the mud with it. It's getting in there with people and healing and helping and exposing them to new ideas, exposing them to new concepts, new ways of framing their reality that are much, much closer to what reality actually is than what you see people labouring under, which leads them to feel disempowered. The Page of Wands and the Chariot reversed, in some ways are like the personal cost. It's like, well, here's what I set out in front of me as what I wanted and where I was going to go. But now, having sat with the information that I have at my disposal and understood it and worked out how I feel about it, actually the way forward is this way. But here's the thing, it doesn't feel like it's that big a cost to you, Gemini. That's the thing that I find really interesting about it. It's like, well, we're not going in that direction. We're not charging in that direction, neither are we, getting ready to charge off in that direction. It's like there's something entirely new that is evolving here. And it's very light and it's very fluid, and in exactly the same way that I could feel with my client last night. Like it's centered around your hands. Now that could be like literal or it could be metaphorical, but it's light, and it's like your connection to your sense of purpose and what is important to you has lost its density and all of the issues that density caused. So there's an acceptance, huge acceptance, that what you're actively doing is going to be something different. But it's still taking along those things that are so important to you that they should be preserved. Now, it could well be that whatever this was is actually just held in abeyance. It's kind of pushed to the side a little bit. And it's like, well, there will be time for that, but that time is not now, because here I am stepping up into something that I am supposed to be doing, and I can't, now I see it, I can't unsee it. Which is really, really interesting. And this whole month then is about not changing those things that are fixed because they need to be, which is the core principles and the values that you live by. There's an aligning of you with your integrity, with all of the information that you've synthesized, and you're like, actually, this is what is required of me moving forwards. And it's light. It's so, so light. And whatever had been planned, it may happen, it may not happen. But there's an alignment to something that is bigger than you playing out here. And I don't think that you can ignore it. I don't think you would ignore it anyway. And this desire to bring through what you feel, bring through what you know in a way that is tangible. Maybe this is where all the hand stuff is coming from, this tactile, in a way that is tangible enough to be understood and perceived by other people, seems to be the purpose. And it's the change of direction, felt, understood, and then very deftly, like, I'm going this way, that seems to be the predominant energy of this month for you. Now, there will be consequences for that. That's almost, there's no getting away from the fact that there will be consequences for that. But I do feel like this is touching you on a level that not a lot of other things have. And so the question of how you incorporate this into your day-to-day, this role of educator, is going to be what is playing through your mind for most of October. I don't know if you'll necessarily, get in it that deeply over the course of October, but you may, because there's a King of Wands there and there's the Three of Wands there. I don't know if you're hanging around on this one, actually, Gemini. A sense of you kind of submitting to the needs of the collective. Not in any unhealthy way, because we've seen plenty of examples of that in the last 4 years, but in a way that is spiritually meaningful. Well, it's quite frankly, it's being of service, recognizing that here is a time for you to be of service, and accepting that. This is wild. Right, I'm going to go over to the extended now, so you can join me over there if you would like to do so. You can do it on Circle or you can do it on Vimeo. I'd be delighted to see you in either place. But we're going to dig into the month of October specifically, because this, I think, is where the change really starts to be perceived. It's not just the reflection of the external world, right, and your experience within it that begins to change. I mean, you yourself are feeling the change. And it's a crystallization, it's a synthesis of everything that you've been putting together over the last few months, in whatever way that applies for you, like what you're understanding about yourself, where you understand your drive and your motivation to be. What do you feel powerful, passionate about, Gemini? Because that seems to be the thing that's leading the way for you. And everything else, at the very least, is said being held in abeyance, may well come back later, but it's not really important. What's important is this way that you are changing direction, and it's entirely self-generated. This is not the universe coming in to kick you in the shins and then run away. Like, it's like when you're swimming in a pool, and you just pull the water and you spin off that way. You're like, that's what I'm feeling here. It's a very fluid motion, and it's very light. It's very lightly held. Okay. So, I'm going to leave it there. Know that I love you all very, very much. And I'll see you soon.